Let's talk about how I saved 100K in 4 years. I do want to acknowledge that I don't have any kids, and I was in a living situation where I lived with a lot of people, which means my living expenses was very low. I am not a financial advisor, and all of these tips are based on my personal experience. I'm going to share with you this 3-step process to get started on your savings journey, and then at the end I will share the savings and the tips on how to make more money. Step 1 is tracking your finances. It's going to be hard to make any changes if we don't know where we're at. Similar to if you were to want to work on your health or your fitness goals, you would start by writing down what your current physical activity levels are. We want to get a better picture of where we're at. If we don't have an idea of where we're at, we're not going to be able to measure our progress and how much we've done. Tracking your expenses is not meant to make you feel bad about yourself. This is a way for you to measure progress so that you know how far you've come afterwards. This is going to keep you motivated when you track. And there are some crucial questions I encourage you to ask you as you do this process. Make it simple. You can put it on your phone as a notepad and write down your spendings in the week, in the 2 weeks, in the month, however long you'd like. When you are doing this, think about, when am I spending money? Do I have any impulsive purchases? Do I tend to spend money in the evening? Do I tend to spend more money when I'm stressed? The more information you can gather and build that awareness about your habits, then the easier it is for you to be able to intervene and work on some of the money habits that you currently have. Step number 2 is determining your goal. Why are you saving? My reason for saving is that I wanted to move out on my own, and I wanted to save up enough to put on a down payment. I'm living in my new place right now, and yeah, I was able to achieve that by being careful with my finances. Think about your goal. It doesn't have to be 100K. We just need a goal for the money you're saving. Why are you saving? Are you saving for a down payment? Are you saving for a wedding? Are you saving for that new MacBook that you want? What are you saving for? And step number 3 is reflect. So now that you know where you're currently at, and you know what your goals are, let's reflect on the number. And you can use ChatGPT. By the way, I use ChatGPT all the time for this if you don't want to do the math on your own. But if you were to try to save 100K in 4 years, this is the number. That means you need to be saving $68 per day. Now, this $68 could be savings, or it could be half savings and half increasing your income. So either you're saving an extra $68 or you're saving $30 and the rest you're making more money, right? Sometimes there's a point where you can't reduce any more of your expenses and you have to find ways to make more income. Now, if you want to be more aggressive with your savings and instead of 100K in 4 years, you think you could do 100K in 3 years, maybe you're living at home and you don't have to pay that many expenses, that would mean, according to the math of ChatGPT, daily you would be needing to save $92. So create a number that you think is realistic for you, and slow is okay. We don't have to save quickly. But if you feel like you're able to sacrifice some of the things that you currently have, then maybe you want to be more aggressive. 4 years was more of a realistic timeline for me, given all the expenses I had, the things I still wanted to keep doing. I didn't want to sacrifice my quality of life to be able to do this. But there were things that I sacrificed because I didn't care about it. And we'll talk more about that afterwards. Let's now talk about ways to save money. So the first thing is, if you have credit card debt, I encourage you to consider balance transfer promotions. And I'll give some examples in the description below for you. But basically, if you are going on this savings journey and you have interest, which from credit cards, it can be 20 to 25 to 30% interest, which is really high, you might want to take advantage of some balance transfers, which means you transfer your balance to a new credit card, and for a year, they will charge you 0 interest. And in that time, ideally, you're paying off that. Now, another option is line of credits. Line of credits are typically lower in interest than credit cards. They're usually could be from 3 to 10% compared to 20 to 30%. And you could apply for a line of credit, see if you do that, and transfer and use that money to pay off your credit card so that you're not building that interest, right? We want to get rid of the interest that is really high. The second thing I do want to mention is don't cut off any expenses that you enjoy. There are things that we can sacrifice because we don't really care, but keep the things that you enjoy. For me personally, I continue to pay for sports. I continue to pay for healthy foods. Those are things I value, and I don't want to sacrifice that portion. And there might be other things that I can sacrifice, and I'm going to put the money towards the things I value the most. So I encourage you to think about things in your life that give you joy that you don't want to sacrifice, because in this process, we don't want to be miserable. We still want to enjoy our life. It's not worth it. And maybe for some people they're okay with it, but I still want to live an enjoyable life in the process. The next place that you can really save is on recurring costs. This is a big one because you can save hundreds and hundreds and thousands of dollars. So anything that's recurring, I want you to think about, do you really need it? And is there a way for me to get it for a cheaper price? For example, internet. I know people are paying $80 to $100 to $150 on their home internet. And if you just spend some extra time to do your research and to call all the different companies, I made an Excel sheet for myself. I called 7 to 8 different internet companies. Shaw, Rogers, and Telus are not the only internet providers. And I went with Tech Savvy because They had the cheapest rates for what I needed, which is $30 a month. So instead of paying $80, which was what was offered at the new place I live in, I'm paying $30. That's like hundreds and hundreds of dollars throughout the year. So do the research. And if you want to try Tech Savvy, that's the one I'm using right now, you can use my referral code in the description below and you'll get $50 off your first 2 months. Next one I want to talk about is cell phone plans. It's ridiculous how expensive cell phone plans can be. I know people who are paying $50 to $150 for their phone plan. Everyone's needs are different. I'm going to say that the best plan is the plan you use most of. If you only use 4 gigs of data a month and you're paying for 60 gigs because it was a great deal, you are not saving money. I'm sorry, you're just not saving money because that's unspent money that you don't need. It's better to go for the not so good deal but pay less if you're not going to even use it. I got really lucky with my internet plan. My parents said that if I want a phone, I have to get it myself. And so when I was 18, or actually when I was in grade 12 was the first time I had my phone. And before that, I would use the, what is it called? Oh my gosh, like 25, the quarters where you put the money in. I can't even think of it. Phone lines? Do people even use those phone lines anymore? What are they called? So I got my first cell phone in grade 12. I wasn't making a lot of money. I was working part-time, but I didn't really want to spend, over $50 for an internet plan. So the plan I had was free incoming calls and unlimited text messages. And this was $5 a month at this time. That's so cheap, and I still have that plan. And as I continued to do more things on the phone, I realized I started to need more data. And I'm on a pay-as-you-go plan, which means I pay for my data. And eventually it got pretty expensive because I started to really use a lot of my data, especially now with WhatsApp, no one really texting anymore, everything being online. I noticed that I started to use it. And when I look back at my data, I was using about 4 to 5 gigs a month. And I'm going to share with you this hack that's saving me a lot of money. If you haven't heard of it before, it's a little bit tricky, but it's called eSIMs. Let me explain. But basically I went traveling in the US and I'm from Canada, so my plan doesn't cover US data. Is it data or data? Is it gigabytes or gigabytes? And I found out about eSIMs, which I knew about when I went to Japan, but the eSIM that I used when I went to Japan was only valid in Asia and it wasn't valid in Canada. So after I got the really cheap data plan from an eSIM in the US, I think it was like $5 for 10 gigabytes of data. And I was like, that's so cheap. I wonder if I can use that in Canada. So I did a little bit more research and I added an eSIM into my phone. I bought data. They use Rogers Network. The provider I use is Mobi Matters. And there's a website where you can compare all the different prices of eSIMs and how much they cost. And I'm paying about $40 USD. So what is that? 40 USD to Canadian. About $54 in Canadian for about 50 gigabytes of data that I can use throughout the year, which is averages about $1 a gigabyte. Gigabyte. I can't pronounce that word. I don't know. Which is really cheap because I average about 4 gigs of data per month based on what when I looked up my history, which means I'm only going to be paying about $50 a year. But the only downside to this one that I'm using is that it works really well for communication. So like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, but any other services, like if you're trying to go in a random app on your phone that's not within the communications, then it doesn't really work. But I'm okay with that because I mainly use my data for communication on Facebook, on Instagram, and on WhatsApp. So that's the downside, but overall, I'm saving so much. I'm paying $50 for the year, which is how much a month if I average that? 50 divided by 12. 50 divided by 12. Yeah, $4.20 a month, plus my $5 from my Freedom Mobile, which is like $10 a month. And I know I'm saving so much. So that's an option. It's a bit tricky, on the trickier side. If you are a long-term customer of an internet provider, you can negotiate every year. Now, my sister, who was paying, I think originally like maybe $80, 70 to 80, her because she's been such a long-term customer, she was offered a $30 plan for basically exactly the same thing that she's had. So if you've been with a provider for long, I encourage you to negotiate because anything that's reoccurring, you want to think about. Can I make this cheaper? Because it's something I need to spend every month, every year. So yes, let's think about your reoccurring costs. Are there subscriptions that you don't really use? Are there transportation things that you can save on? Is it worth it for you to have a car right now? There are a lot of things I want you to reflect on when it comes to any of your recurring bills. Recently got a haircut for free by students at a hair salon store. So if you go on Facebook and you search free haircuts by students, free hair models needed, you can actually get free haircut. The only difference is it's gonna take longer. So it took, I think 2.5 hours to do my hair, to cut my hair because it was by a student. So if you're willing to sacrifice that time, you can save some money. And same with dyeing your hair. Like they're always looking for color models, and I'm planning to dye my hair in the next few weeks by student. It's completely free. Sometimes they charge you for products, so it might be like $30, but I know haircuts, especially for women, can be expensive. Like at least $50 can go up to $100. And hair, if you're dyeing your hair, oh man, $300 plus tip. Like it's ridiculously how expensive. But I mean, if that is something you enjoy and you love the process of, go ahead. For me, before this, I was literally cutting my hair on my own with a YouTube video, like cutting my own bangs for the last few years because, I don't know, I just didn't really enjoy going to the hair salon. It's a place where I'm okay saving money with. Another thing I want to talk about is prevention and how that's going to save you money. Because if you spend extra time taking care of your teeth, taking care of yourself, you're gonna have lower expenses in the future. And this is something I always think about. I don't know how I became like this. When I was a kid, I didn't even brush my teeth. I remember my sister and I, we would say, oh, should we brush our teeth today? Nah, let's pretend to not brush our teeth. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why was I not brushing my teeth as a kid? That's gross. But since then, I've really taken care of myself. I've YouTubed like how to brush your teeth properly, how to floss properly, because I know how expensive teeth care can be. It's something that I'm trying to avoid in the future. Similar to health, anything health related, something that you don't feel like it's urgent now, but if you leave it for too long, it's going to become urgent and you're gonna have to spend a lot of money on it. And so prevention is part of saving. Another thing that I recommend is to always buy secondhand first. See if you can borrow from a friend. If it's something that you use once a year, do you really need to buy it? Is it something that you can borrow? If you've never heard of buy nothing groups, these are things people are giving away for free. You can find your buy nothing group in your community by going on their website, joining the Facebook group. I love it because you build community, you get to know some of the people in your community and in your neighborhood. There's less waste involved. We're all sharing, and people give away their food, so you can even get food here. It's literally limitless. There's so much. I've really enjoyed the buy nothing groups. And of course, thrifting. You can always thrift. I would be a little bit mindful about thrifting because you have to be careful. Sometimes thrift stores aren't really a good deal. So I would look maybe on Facebook Marketplace first and then see if it's actually, see the price range that things are on average. And then when you go to the thrift store, you'll know if something's a good deal or not a good deal. Because I have seen some things at the thrift store that are really not that cheap. But I do have to say, when you do buy clothes that are used, they will last longer because they already made it there. So if it's in fairly good condition, I've had clothes for like 10 years plus because they just last and I don't do anything special. I still throw it in the wash like a regular lazy person and I don't separate my colors and I just throw everything in there and it still lasts. Another thing I love to do with my girlfriends is clothing swaps. Clothing swaps are so fun. Once every quarter, once a year, once every 6 months, you basically just do a clean out of your closet and bring in anything that you maybe don't need, and you come together, which can be kind of like a catch up with your girlfriends, and we just share clothes that we don't want, and then we'll donate the rest. It's actually one of my favorite things and I love it. Another thing that I've implemented into my family and also my friend groups is a junk white elephant. So during the holidays, when you are doing gift exchanges and white elephant, there's just such a busy time that I don't want to think about buying more things. And a junk white elephant is someone is bringing something that you no longer need that is still decent condition enough for someone else to use. And it's always been so fun to see what people bring. And there has been things that are of $100 value, $50 value, even though for them, they don't need it anymore. And it's a fun way to reduce consumerism. Another saving tip is to find cheap hobbies to do. If you have an expensive hobby and you love it, please keep doing it, don't stop. But I think I was a little bit intentional with some of my hobbies because I liked that it was very accessible and it didn't cost a lot. For example, jump roping. Jump roping is really cheap. You just buy your jump rope. You can do it anywhere. It's cheap, it's free, it's great exercise. There's a meetup jump rope community in Vancouver and it's fun. I love it. So that's a cheap way. I do a lot of pretty cheap hobbies, guitar and piano at home, drawing at home, running, playing basketball. These are all things that are relatively cheap hobbies to do. And so it's good to kind of create a list for yourself of things you enjoy. Of course, if the hobby you like brings you a lot of value and expensive, keep it. I have a lot of lists. And one of the lists is free things to do with people, because I just want to enjoy time with you and it doesn't always have to cost extravagant amount. And I know money is tight for a lot of people because of inflation and everything. We aren't really getting paid more, but everything's getting more expensive. So I have a list of things that I can do. For example, you can volunteer together. You can have finance nights or conversation nights where you have different topics that you dive into. You can have movie nights at home, board game nights. You can get free photo shoots on Craigslist. You can run around the neighborhood for free. You can go for a walk. You can have a little picnic on your own. You can bake something, cook something, which is cheaper than going out. You can play games, play cards, do art together, go to free fitness classes together. Another resource that I encourage you to consider is meetup.com. Meetup.com is a great place to build or join a community. A lot of it is free. There's running clubs, there's business, there's so many different topics. It's a great way to meet people. I've met so many great people through that app and that community. Okay, I do want to also talk about food because food is such a big expense for a lot of people. And there are a lot of different ways that I've managed to save money on food. Although I do have to say, I do spend a lot on food more than other things because this is something I value. I really value my health and I will put more money. But there are ways to reduce your expenses even though you're trying to be healthy. Eating healthy doesn't have to be super expensive. Here's some of the strategies that I have. Tip number 1 is to avoid using delivery services. I know it's hard. We have to find a backup for this because this is when you're hungry, you want food right now, and none of the food inside your fridge satisfies you, and you don't have anything that's like a meal, and you just want your food. There's so many costs. Obviously, the prices of the menu items are more expensive. There's a delivery cost, there's a tip, there's extra fees from the app. So avoid using Uber, skip the dishes if you can. To offset this, what I do is I always make frozen meals, or you can buy frozen meals and it'll still be cheaper to keep in your freezer for those emergency situations where you're so hungry that you just want food now. You want it delivered to you because it's that easy for us to get our food now. I would try my best to avoid that. There are a lot of apps that you can use to save money, and some of the ones that I mentioned, it's mostly in Vancouver, BC or Canada. I'm not sure if it's located where you're at, but these are the ones that I currently use. And maybe there is a version of it that you can Google on your own. So the first one I like to use is Peko Produce. So Peko Produce, P-E-K-O Produce, they give you grocery box for 50% off because the food items didn't make it to the grocery store because they were a little bit bruised or they just weren't the right shape. For whatever reason, there's some strict guidelines that vegetables have to look perfect going to the grocery store. So unfair. So let's spend some money and let's not waste food and buy some of the imperfect produce. They give you a huge box of fruits and vegetables, extra food, and with shipping and everything, it costs about $30 for this produce box. And this is my vegetables and fruit for the week. I do have a referral code for this. If you use a referral code, you get, I believe, $5 off your second box. Another way to save money is through an app called Flash Food. Flash Foods, they partner with grocery stores, and right now I think it's mostly Superstore, wholesale, Loblaws. It's an app similar to Peko Produce. When it's getting close to its expiration date, the product will go 50% off. You purchase it on the app, and then you pick it up at the store. This is great for things like meat and fruit and vegetables. It has gotten really popular, so you have to be quick to purchase it, but the meats and the fish and the seafood go on sale. You can just freeze them for later use. That's all my tips for now for saving. If you want me to dive into that deeper, let me know. I am a savings queen. I have all the hacks possible. Seriously. Let's talk about making more money because there is a limit to how much you can save. You can figure out your bare minimum and how much you need to live your life, but there's going to be a point where you can't go any lower. And especially if you have kids or other expenses, this might be hard. So maybe your solution will be to make more money. Here are some of the ways that you can make more money. The first way is to negotiate your salary. Ask for a promotion. I know this can be really hard and tricky. Yeah, when the opportunity came for me to get a promotion, I went for it. I got about, I think it was like 8 to 10K more than my original salary. And then on top of that, I did start my little side hustle, lemon jars. I'm not doing as much anymore, but at the time when I was doing that for the 2 years, on average, I was making about $500 a week. But that is from showing up for farmers markets and selling at farmers markets every weekend, right? Saturday and Sunday. So I was basically working 7 days a week. So now when I think back, the hustle was a lot. I was learning a lot and it was fun. But at this point, I'm not doing any more in-person markets. So that number, I am no longer making $500 a week from that. But I was making that on average throughout the seasons for the 2 years. And so that was how I made extra income. I also, in the last year, sold about $3,000 Facebook Marketplace. I was moving out from a home that I've lived in for about 20 years. And so we had a lot of stuff, a lot of things, but all the little things add up. It was like $50, $20. And over time, that's just how much I made. And it's pretty good because a lot of people just throw things away, but you can sometimes sell it and it might be worth the time. If you want a video on how to sell or buy on Facebook Marketplace, I might do that. Leave a comment below and let me know if that's something you're interested in because I've learned so much from Facebook Marketplace. $3,000 extra a year is pretty good. Yeah, and then the third side business I did was I did a little bit of nutrition counseling, nutrition services. I did an 8-week program, which $1,500 from that. So yeah, those are some of the ways that I made extra income to save up for the money. Now, for you, I want you to think about, what skills do you have? Is there something that you can offer? Could you fix something? Can you clean? Can you dog sit? Can you cat sit? Do you have things to sell on Facebook Marketplace? Do you like to bake? Could you sell food? There are so many different ways to get started, and just start with one and see how it goes. Even if it's just $100 extra a month, it's a skill that you're developing to be able to market yourself out there and be comfortable with asking for money. All right, those are all of my tips and advice when it comes to saving and making more money. If there is a video topic that you want me to dive into deeper, please make a comment below and let me know. I just want to say everyone's journey is unique. Please, please, please take the tips and advice and tailor it to what's helpful for you. What worked for me might not work for you. Everyone is in a different situation and we can't compare ourselves. Take control of your finances and start saving for your future, for the things and goals that you want in your life. That's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day and I will talk to you soon. Bye.